light slipping from her hand, the glass cracking before it hit the sink. She said the air felt too heavy that morning, that her chest hurt for no reason. I didn't think much of it then. She had just lost another job, third one that year, and we were both used to pretending it wasn't her fault. The company downsized. The boss had a temper. The project ended early. Excuses stacked like empty boxes in the corner of her room. I was renting a small place across town. She lived closer to the old train line, in a building that smelled of wet concrete. Every time I visited, something else didn't work. The bathroom light flickered. The tap leaked brown water. Her phone kept dying overnight, even when it wasn't plugged in. She laughed about it at first, said maybe the universe hated her. I told her she needed rest. She nodded, but her eyes didn't follow the same rhythm as her voice. When she blinked, it looked like she was waking from somewhere else. Our parents used to call her the strong one. Independent, quiet, good with numbers. But that year, nothing stayed straight. She lost her keys twice. The power went out during a video interview. Her landlord accused her of scratching symbols into the hallway wall, something shaped like circles inside circles. She said she didn't do it. He didn't believe her. I drove down to help her move out. Her boxes were already sealed. The walls looked cleaner than I remembered. She was sitting by the door, holding a mug that had no tea inside. "Where are you going this time?" I asked. "Doesn't matter," she said. Her voice was flat, like someone reading from a list. "Somewhere quieter." I helped her load the car. She didn't bring much. Just clothes, a small desk, a mirror she wrapped in an old sheet. When I lifted it, the fabric slipped. The glass caught my reflection for half a second, distorted, as if the surface had ripples. I set it down fast. She didn't notice. We drove in silence. The new place was smaller, a basement studio near the river. Humidity lived there. The walls sweated at night. She said the rent was cheap because no one wanted the unit after what happened to the previous tenant. When I asked what that was, she said the realtor wouldn't tell her. The first week went fine. She texted me photos of the view. Gray water, a single tree leaning toward it, a cat sitting on the railing. By the second week, she stopped replying at night. Her messages came in bursts, hours apart. When I called, she said she'd been busy or asleep. One night, close to midnight, I got a voicemail from her. Just breathing, long, uneven breaths. Then a whisper, "Don't come yet." The message cut off. I went anyway. It rained the whole drive. When I reached the building, the lobby light was out. Her door was half open. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers. Job applications, rejection letters, invoices. The air was damp enough to taste. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded, eyes fixed on the papers. "They all said the same thing," she murmured. "Something about me makes them uncomfortable." Her hands were shaking, not from fear, more like exhaustion. I gathered the papers and stacked them into a pile. The top one had water stains shaped like fingerprints. 5 of them, all too small to be hers. The next morning, she made coffee and acted like nothing happened. She talked about finding another job, about maybe taking a course, maybe moving again. I wanted to tell her to stop, just stop moving, but I didn't. She looked like someone already halfway gone. Over the next few months, the pattern repeated. New place, new start, new failure. Everywhere she went, things broke. Computers froze, lights burst. A supervisor slipped on an empty floor and blamed her for leaving water there. She never defended herself. She just stood there, pale and tired, as if it had already happened before. When I visited again that winter, I found her sitting by the window with a notebook. Inside were lists, dates, addresses, symbols. One page just said, "They follow order." Another said, "Only the mirrors see it first." She said it wasn't for anyone to read, that it helped her keep track of things. I thought about taking her to a doctor, but I didn't know what to say. She wasn't hallucinating in the usual way. She wasn't screaming or running. She was calm, deliberate, like someone documenting weather. By spring, she stopped leaving the house. Neighbors complained about noises, footsteps at odd hours, the sound of someone talking when she was alone. When the landlord came to check, she refused to open the door. He threatened eviction. She said, "Go ahead." That was the last normal day we had. A week later she called. Her voice sounded far away, like she was standing at the bottom of a well. "I think I know why things don't work," she said. I asked her what she meant. She paused for a long time before whispering, "It's not bad luck. It's them." The line cut out. When I arrived that night, the lights in her building were flickering in rhythm, on, off, on. Through the window, I saw her standing perfectly still. Behind her, something moved, but too faint to name. After that night, my sister stopped pretending. No more excuses about managers or bad timing. She said her name felt used up. She wanted to change it legally, as if the right name might stop everything from falling apart. She filled out forms, went to the courthouse, waited 3 hours. When the clerk called her number, the system froze. Every monitor in the room went black. The clerk sighed, said it happened sometimes, told her to come back next week. When she came home, she sat on the floor again. The same corner. Her back to the wall, her eyes tracing something only she understood. There were small dents in the plaster now, like fingernail marks half-pressed and withdrawn. I cleaned up around her, picked up her clothes, threw out spoiled food. The refrigerator had stopped working again. It wasn't old. She'd bought it new, but the light inside refused to turn on. Every appliance she touched ended up the same way. I told her maybe she should move in with me for a while. She said no. She said whatever followed her wouldn't stop just because the address changed. Then she smiled, tired, like someone trying to apologize for existing. The following week, she found another job at a storage company by the docks. Paperwork mostly, inventory records, shipment logs. She liked the quiet. Said the noise in her head was softer when she worked with numbers. For a few days, she sounded almost normal. Then the emails started. Blank messages from untraceable accounts. Sometimes just timestamps in the subject line. Always 1 minute apart. 12:31, 12:32, 12:33. She said they arrived even when the computer was off. Her manager thought it was a prank. IT checked the logs. No sender listed, no attachments. They told her to ignore it. The next day, half the system crashed, and the company laid off 5 people. She was one of them. She didn't cry. She just said, "I knew it." I didn't ask what she meant. I started visiting her every 2 days. She didn't eat much, slept even less. The floor near her mattress was covered in salt. When I asked about it, she said it helped keep things still. I thought she was talking about humidity. Sometimes, when I walked into her apartment, the air had weight. Not smell, not heat, just pressure. Like the space between her and the ceiling was full of something waiting to drop. I found notebooks again, new ones. They weren't filled with words this time. Just lines, rows and rows of them. Some straight, some jagged, almost like sound waves. She said, "They move when I sleep." I told her not to say that kind of thing. She nodded, but her eyes kept moving, following something behind me. One night I stayed over. She was too pale, and I didn't trust her to be alone. We didn't talk much. She watched the wall. I watched her. At 2:47 a.m., she sat up suddenly. Said she heard footsteps. I didn't hear anything. Then a door slammed somewhere above us, hard enough to shake the light fixture. It was an old building. Sounds traveled. "Still," she whispered. That one's for me." In the morning, she looked calm again. Made coffee for both of us. Her hands were steady. I thought maybe things were turning around. But when I opened the cabinet, every cup was cracked down the middle. Not chipped, split clean, like something pushed outward from inside. By early summer, her lease ended. She didn't renew it. Said she wanted to test something. I asked what. She said, if distance matters. She moved 2 towns over, into an attic room above a laundromat. I helped carry her things, lighter every time. She sold her TV, her computer, her bed frame. Said she liked sleeping closer to the floor. A week passed before I heard from her. A single text. Still doesn't stop. Then nothing for 3 days. When I finally visited, she wasn't home. The laundromat owner said she'd gone out early that morning and hadn't come back. Her window was open. The air inside felt colder than outside. On her desk, there was a half-finished note. The handwriting was small, controlled. It said, "Things break because they're shared. When I'm alone, they stay still." The paper had water stains again, same small circular marks, like someone had pressed wet fingers there. That night, she called. Her voice was quieter than before, but clearer. She said she found a way to make it stop, at least for a while. When I asked how, she said she couldn't explain it, only that I shouldn't worry if I didn't hear from her for some time. 2 weeks passed. No calls, no texts. Her number disconnected. Her room stayed paid up for another month. Rent covered in cash left on the counter. The laundromat owner said lights turned on by themselves at night, but no one came down the stairs. He started locking the upper door. I didn't tell him I had a key. When I went back inside, everything was gone. Her clothes, her notebooks, even the cracked cups. Only the mirror remained, leaned against the wall, half covered by that same old sheet. I almost didn't touch it, but I had to. The glass was cold, fogged from the inside. When I wiped it, I saw her face for a second. Not behind me, inside it. The reflection looked tired but relieved. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I thought she mouthed my name. I blinked, and it was just my own face again. The air felt lighter after that, or maybe I just stopped noticing the weight. When I locked the door, the mirror cracked. Not from pressure, just quietly, like glass deciding it had done enough. Outside, the laundromat machines hummed, one after another, turning everything white with steam. I waited for the noise to fade, but it didn't. It followed me home. I didn't mean to read her notes. At first, I just wanted to clean the place before the landlord threw everything out. The drawers were full of receipts, torn envelopes, coffee-stained lists. On the back of one electricity bill, she had drawn a map. No streets, just lines running in circles, crossing and fading into each other. At the center, a single word written over and over. Quiet. I took the papers home, laid them on the floor under the lamp, tried to find a pattern. Every date she wrote matched the day something broke. Her job, her phone, her health. Every 7th entry had the same mark in the corner, like a thumbprint smudged in ash. I didn't notice it at first, but under certain light the mark shimmered, almost metallic. When I touched it, it felt warm. I told myself it was just oil from her hands. Over the next few days, I kept finding new pages, folded inside books, tucked behind furniture. Some pages had words written backward, mirrored across the line. When I held them up to the window, they formed sentences. They stand behind sound. They break what remembers. They use her name when they answer. I didn't know what any of it meant. But that night I dreamed of her sitting at her desk, writing with both hands. Each hand moving opposite directions, the room filled with whispering paper. When she looked up, her mouth was moving, but her voice came from behind me. I woke up with the taste of dust on my tongue. I tried to call her again, disconnected. I emailed the storage company, the landlord, anyone who might have seen her. No one answered. After a week, I went back to her old place by the river, the first apartment she'd left behind. A new tenant lived there, a quiet man with paint under his nails. He said strange things happened before he moved in. Water stains on the ceiling shaped like faces. Footsteps during the day when no one was upstairs. He'd repainted everything white. When I asked if he found any of her things, he said there was one box in the storage shed. Inside were broken chargers, 2 cracked phones, and the mirror I thought she'd taken. The glass had been replaced, but not well. It looked like it was holding its breath. I took it with me. I don't know why. At home, I propped it against the wall and covered it with a sheet. But at night, I could feel the air shift around it, like it was listening. I moved it to the closet, then the basement. Didn't matter. Every morning it was back in the same spot, angled toward my bed. I started recording the nights. Just sound. The first few hours were empty. Rustling pipes, wind. Then, near 3 a.m., a voice. Soft, low, familiar. It said my name. Not shouted, not whispered, just spoken, like a reminder, then again and again. The third time, I realized it was her voice. Not how she used to sound, but how she did in the last call before she vanished, half buried in static. I listened until the recorder clicked off. When I played it back in the morning, the sound was gone. Nothing but silence. Not even the ambient noise a microphone usually catches. Silence that felt heavier than sound. That evening, I checked the mirror again. For the first time, I saw what she meant when she said things didn't stay fixed. The reflection wasn't wrong. It was delayed. Every movement I made came back a heartbeat too late. I turned my head. The image followed after. I blinked. The reflection kept its eyes open. I backed away, but the air behind me felt crowded. Something stood just beyond the edge of my sight. I didn't turn. If I turned, I knew it would move too. For days, I stopped using mirrors altogether. I covered the bathroom glass, the laptop screen, even the microwave door. Still, I caught glimpses, not faces, just movement, like breath underwater. I took the recordings and her notes to a friend who worked with sound design. He ran them through filters, expecting interference or electrical noise. He stopped halfway, said there was a second waveform underneath my sister's voice. Too faint to be human speech, too structured to be random static. He printed it out for me. A jagged pattern, repeating every 7 seconds. It matched the drawings in her notebook exactly. He asked if I wanted to know what the waveform sounded like slowed down. I said yes. He played it. It wasn't a word. Not in any language I know. It was the sound of breathing through glass. After that, I couldn't sleep in the same room as the mirror. I left it outside by the dumpster. The next morning, it was leaning against my door, spotless, as if it had been waiting. I stopped bringing it inside. I drove it to a lake 2 towns over, carried it to the edge, and let it fall face down into the water. The surface closed without a sound. No splash, no ripple. When I got home, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. For the first time in months, nothing broke. No flickering lights, no dead phones. Even the air felt lighter. I told myself maybe that was the end of it. Maybe she was somewhere safe. But a week later, I got an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, washed in blue. It showed the lake, the same night I left the mirror there. A figure was standing on the water. It was her, or what used to be her. Her face was blurred, as if she'd turned halfway between worlds. At the bottom of the photo, someone had written in her handwriting, "You can see them now too, can't you?" I started seeing motion where nothing moved. The shadow of my own shoulder kept arriving late. like it was following me at a distance. Every time I turned off a light, the darkness waited before filling the room. A small hesitation, as if deciding whether to let me go. The photograph never left my desk. I tried burning it. It wouldn't catch. The paper only curled, blackened at the edges, and turned smooth again, as if the heat had changed its mind. For days I didn't go to work, didn't answer the phone. The house smelled of damp wood and old metal. When I walked down the hall, the floor creaked in pairs. One step mine, one step delayed. At night, the breathing came back. Not from the mirror. That was gone. From the walls, from the space between my ribs when I tried to hold still. A slow inhale that didn't belong to me. I stopped using the lights. Electric bulbs hummed too loudly now, like something trapped inside the filaments. I learned the pattern of my house by touch, table edge, chair leg, the frame of the door. Still, I kept bumping into things that weren't there. On the 5th night, the ceiling started leaking. Not water, cold air, heavy as smoke. It poured down in ribbons I could almost see, twisting as if invisible hands were wringing them dry. When I reached up, the temperature bit through my skin. My fingers came back pale and damp, smelling faintly of earth. I opened every window. Nothing moved. Outside was the same color as inside. I tried to leave. The key wouldn't fit the lock. It was the same key I'd used for months, but the metal no longer recognized my hand. I turned it anyway until my palm split. No sound came from the cut, no pain, no heartbeat, just the hush of something listening. Then the lights turned on by themselves. Every bulb in the house, all at once. White, flat, wrong. In that moment, I saw everything too clearly. The furniture was rearranged. Chairs stacked in the center of the room. Her notebooks spread around them in a perfect circle. Pages open, trembling in the air though no wind passed. Each page bore the same word, scrawled in frantic lines. Quiet, quiet, quiet. In the center, her handwriting changed. It thinned, letters stretching until they stopped being words at all, just shapes. Identical to the waveform the sound engineer showed me. 7 seconds repeating. A breathing pattern drawn by something that no longer needed lungs. I backed toward the door. It opened before I touched it. The hallway was gone. In its place stood the river, the first building she ever left behind, folded into the shape of my apartment. The floor was slick concrete. The air smelled of mildew and cold laundry. Her mirror leaned against the opposite wall, unbroken. I could see myself standing in front of it, but the room behind my reflection wasn't mine. It was hers. The attic, the window, the salt ring. She was there, sitting on the floor, hair covering her face. I whispered her name. She didn't move. Instead, the reflection behind her began to fill with other shapes, faces too close, pressed against the glass from the inside, mouths open. No sound, only the movement of lips forming that same word. Quiet. I felt the floor bend. The board softened, turning into something that pulsed faintly beneath my shoes. When I looked down, the grain of the wood had turned into lines, concentric, repeating, identical to the drawings. They were spreading outward, tracing my feet like roots. I ran. The walls followed. Every door opened into the same room, same mirror, same circle of notebooks. The smell of dust turned sweet, metallic. My ears filled with the sound of breathing, layered until it became a single continuous tone, the pitch of still air held. Too long. Somewhere in that noise, her voice returned. Not behind me this time. Inside my mouth. Words forming without breath. She said, "They found a way through." The light flickered once. For a fraction of a second, I wasn't in the room. I was standing in water up to my knees, the lake surface black and perfect. The mirror floated nearby, face down, rising and falling with the sound of unseen lungs. Then I heard another voice, lower, heavier, crawling through the same sentence from beneath hers. It used my name, spoke it exactly the way I do when I answer the phone, and for the first time, I realized the echo wasn't repeating me. It was practicing. I stepped back, but the water followed, climbing up the walls, filling the outlines of the furniture. When it reached the ceiling, the world went silent. No hum, no breathing, just quiet. And in that quiet, I finally understood what she had written. It wasn't a warning. It was an address. A place built from everything that stops making noise. Broken machines, deadlines, empty houses. She hadn't been haunted. She had been claimed. The surface above me shivered. For an instant, I saw her again, standing upside down on the other side of the ceiling, watching. Her mouth didn't move, but my throat did. I heard my own voice say, "You shouldn't have followed." The floor gave way. Light burst like shattered glass, then folded back into darkness so complete it felt physical, pressing into my eyes until I could see shapes moving inside it. They weren't shadows. They were waiting. And they all looked like me. I don't remember the fall, only the sound it made before silence swallowed it. A low vibration, as if the air itself had been stretched too far and finally tore. Then nothing. When I opened my eyes, the world had no direction. There was no floor, no ceiling, only layers of faint light floating like dust underwater. The air shimmered with a quiet so deep it felt physical, pressing against my chest until breathing felt like trespassing. I stood, or thought I did. Every movement made a sound I couldn't hear but could feel. A soft resistance, like pushing through fabric that wanted to close around me again. Something glimmered in the distance. Not light, reflection. I walked toward it. Each step left no trace, yet I could sense the ground, remembering me. It pulsed once underfoot, as if marking my presence. After what could have been minutes or hours, I saw her. My sister was standing in the middle of the space, her back turned. Her hair hung perfectly still, not moving though no wind existed. When I called her name, the sound didn't travel. It fell beside me like a stone into deep water. She didn't turn. Instead, the surface beneath her rippled, and hundreds of faint outlines appeared. Faces, half drawn in the air, trembling between shapes. They weren't looking at her. They were looking at me. I tried to speak again, but the air refused my voice. It wasn't echoing. It was consuming. Every word I tried to form became part of the stillness, absorbed before it could mean anything. My sister finally moved. Not a turn, just a shift. Enough for me to see the side of her face. Colorless. Eyes open but unfocused. She wasn't breathing. I realized nothing here breathed. The quiet wasn't the absence of sound. It was the sound itself, endless, holding everything that had stopped moving. I stepped closer. The air thickened, colder now, tasting of metal and dust. Around her feet, the same circles she used to draw were engraved into the ground, perfect, sharp, glowing faintly from within. I could see words carved between them, the same fragments from her notes. They stand behind sound. They break what remembers. They use her name when they answer. She reached out a hand, and for a moment, I believed she saw me, but her hand didn't stop when it touched my shoulder. It passed through, slow and deliberate, leaving behind a line of cold that burned. Then she whispered, not with her mouth, but inside the space itself. Her voice came from everywhere, layered over itself in 1,000 distances. Don't move. They're learning the shape of you. The air trembled. The faces in the light turned. Every single one had my features. Eyes half closed, mouth slightly open. Waiting. I felt them breathe in unison, a rhythm like a machine rehearsing life. When I exhaled, they followed. When I blinked, they blinked. But one stayed late. It didn't close its eyes when I did. It just watched. That one stepped forward. The rest stayed suspended, flickering between form and shadow. The figure's outline sharpened as it approached. My height, my stance, my hands. It stopped a few inches away, tilting its head the way I did when I didn't understand something. Its mouth opened, and my sister's voice came out. Not whispering, explaining. They use echoes to build themselves. Every silence you leave becomes their room. Then she was gone again, fading like smoke into the reflection. Only the figure remained. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Distance didn't exist here. Every direction folded back into the same space. The figure reached out. Its hand touched my chest. I expected cold, but it was warm, alive. Then I realized why. It wasn't touching me from outside, it was reaching from inside. My heartbeat stuttered. The light dimmed. For a moment I saw what it saw. A corridor of reflections stretching endlessly, each version of me standing slightly further away, mouths moving in silence. They weren't trapped. They were waiting for someone to take their place. I heard my sister again, closer now, voice soft, almost kind. You stay too long. They can't tell you apart anymore. Something moved behind her, not shapes this time, but outlines peeling off the air itself, gathering around her like smoke folding into fabric. They leaned close, and where they touched her, she became transparent, like glass under pressure. I tried to reach her, but my arms felt distant. The space between us stretched, not longer but thicker, heavy like syrup, and filled with the faint sound of static disguised as breath. I shouted her name again. This time, the sound went through, but it didn't reach her. It reached them. Every reflection turned toward me at once, eyes open, mouths widening until they weren't mouths anymore, just dark shapes pulling the air inward. The quiet broke, not with noise but with movement. The world inhaled. Everything rushed forward. The light, the faces, my own image multiplied 100 times. They collapsed into me, through me, until I couldn't tell which body I was standing in. When the last of them entered, the air went still again. I was alone. Or I thought I was. I looked down. My hands weren't mine. They were hers. Thin, pale, the fingernails chipped in the same place I'd seen the night before she disappeared. I lifted them to my face, and the reflection obeyed a second too late. Its eyes watched me with quiet recognition. The silence deepened. Something began to whisper from far away, the sound like a radio caught between stations, faint, rhythmic, speaking through static. It wasn't words, not yet. Then it shaped itself into something familiar. Quiet isn't empty, it said. It's everything that refused to leave. The light flickered once, twice. When it steadied, the space was gone. I was sitting at my desk again, morning outside, normal light. The photograph lay where I'd left it, dry now, the ink almost erased. I turned it over. On the back, new handwriting had appeared. My own. It said, "Don't open the door when you hear your name." I didn't remember writing it. The clock ticked once, then stopped. No sound followed. The air felt thick again, full of quiet waiting to move. In the reflection of the dark window, a shape stood behind me. Familiar posture, same eyes, same hands. It smiled, and for the first time, I realized my sister had never escaped. She had only changed the voice of the silence. That's all for tonight's story. I'll return soon with another tale from the dark. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe. You never know what's coming next.